We're looking at physical evidence that free access to the arts at a young age can be life-changing, hopefully in a good way. Sometime in the 1960s I was handed a battered old flugelhorn, an old brass thing that was the property of the band that both my brothers played for. It was a heap of scrap, but it felt like a piece of solid gold in my hands at the time. Brass bands, as you know, have got a very, very strong industrial heritage. Most of them, a lot of them were the product of the Industrial Revolution. And thousands of them used to exist in this country, around factories, textile mills, coal mines, all types of industry. It was actually the introduction of the railway network in the mid-19th century that was a catalyst for the very first brass band contests. Places like Manchester, Leeds, even London. And it's a little known fact that the first special railway excursions were to brass band contests. Often attended by maybe 50,000, 60,000 people. And this is 20 years before organised football. So just for a bit of context there. At one time there was 20,000 brass bands, at the turn of the 20th century, there was 20,000 brass bands in England alone. That's 500,000 people almost playing a brass instrument. It's a much smaller population these days. And the culture probably peaked in popularity either side of the Second World War. By this time, of course, we were regular on BBC radio. Some of the famous bands had become household names, and as had some of the players and conductors. My home village, West Calder, you've never heard of it. It's now in West Lothian. It used to be in Midlothian, in central Scotland. That was the vibrant hub of the shale mining industry. But she'd all but died by the time I was born. I think the last pits closed around 1960. But being brought up in a deprived former mining village, the local band hall became the centre of the world, really. The education that we received there was very traditional. A couple of old men who had once been good players. They had some very basic methods. The one that I remember most was the smack across the ear when they made a mistake. But they must have been doing something right, because they actually did manage to produce some good players who went on to better things. And we've got much to be thankful to them for. But what they did more than anything, they provided us with focus, discipline, social skills, but above all, a free musical education that broadened our horizons, and not just musically. So we'll all always have to be grateful to these old guys. I also have a lot to thank my parents for, and there's one thing that my mother did once which will always live with me. Very typical of the woman that she was. She was aware that the other primary schools in the area had peripatetic brass teachers, and we didn't. So she literally marched into the headmaster's office and demanded the same for us. I mean, no sane person would have refused her at request. And the headmaster was clearly very intelligent, and it wasn't long before we had our own brass teacher. Got to high school, great picture there as well. A very vibrant music department. This is at West Calder High School. Generations of young musicians benefited from the regular group performances and the free tuition that we all got there. And I am far from the only person who attended that school who went on to later life to continue to play brass, and some of them even went on to much better things as professional musicians. So I've had a bit of a convoluted journey. You talk about Hope Pay, was it?
Hope Labour.
Hope Labour. I guess I was hearing that and I was thinking I had no Hope Labour. I had no ambition. Really, I was an engineer. I worked in engineering for 20 years, studied at the Open University. I have an O-level music that I got when I was at school. But I had no ambition to work as a professional. I just never considered myself good enough. So I've kind of been opportunistic and fallen into a few things. So I did my 30 years apprenticeship, playing in brass bands, organising brass bands and events, and getting involved in the wider kind of culture. Never thinking for 1 minute that I would actually end up doing this for a living. So it's been a kind of fairly convoluted journey for me, but in the context of brass banding, what I did was very, very typical. You know, starting before I got lessons at school in the local brass band, getting lessons at school, and having the opportunities to continue to do that is something that happened on a massive scale across the whole UK, right through my youth, right through probably the youth of most people in this room. The thing about brass band people is we're everywhere. You could probably even form a reasonably good band from the benches at Westminster. Is that my time up already?
No.
From the benches of Westminster. But I can tell you with certainty that this brass section of every professional orchestra in the UK is packed with players who blew their first notes in brass bands. Most of them having free lessons or next to free lessons at a very young age. We've had academic research by Sheffield University which has demonstrated mental health benefits in playing in a brass band. And we all know there's copious evidence of the benefits of music education on other subjects at school. The brass band, though, as the public sees it, still comprises working class men from the industrial north. But the reality in 2025 couldn't be more different. There are many bands in the south as there are in the north. Did you know that? But you didn't. And there's much chance of finding yourself sitting next to a doctor, a scientist, an engineer, a retired bank manager, as there is anybody who ever dug coal or built a ship. We do attract all types, but there's still a lot of work to be done. We need to keep working on our public image, but anyone who's attended the National Youth Brass Band Championships in recent years will know there are many girls playing as there are boys. It's fantastic, isn't it? And our traditional challenges over diversity and inclusion are slowly becoming less an issue. We have a challenge, we call it Challenge 2030 initiative, and we're trying to encourage every band in the country to become a reflection of its own society by the end of the decade. It is working to an extent. I mean, it's got no chance of being 100% successful, but if we don't try, it's never going to. But a lot of that work is built on our education work and getting people into deprived, diverse areas. And that, of course, needs funding, which we have, time to time, had plenty of. But during the past month, we found it necessary to let some of our Brass Foundations team go, simply because we're facing the same problems as the entire creative sector. So sadly, so much of what was possible for me and the following generations just isn't available for so many today. We're very fortunate to have in our membership at Brass Band England fantastic organisations, places as diverse as Amersham and Bucks, who knew, and Elland in West Yorkshire. But bands that have really put themselves at the heart of their own communities and providing life-changing opportunities for young people that would otherwise be unavailable to them. Maybe not so much over in Amersham, but you get the point. This is something that's happening on quite a scale nationwide. So a major part of Brass Bands England work is promoting the best practice among our 680 member bands, but challenges in the education sector are a different matter completely. So, of the local education authorities that do still provide instrumental lessons, many charge for the privilege. Official figures are actually very hard to come by, but anecdotally, access is very limited for deprived communities across the whole country. Charging for lessons in school would have excluded me in the 1970s, but local brass bands never charged a penny, and most still don't. Or if they do, it's a couple of quid, or what you can afford. Brass bands across the UK still provide a free or very low-cost musical education, but that provision can be inconsistent with variable standards from one organisation to the next. So what can we do? BBE, Brass Bands England, has worked tirelessly over the last 5 years to help music hubs and local education authorities understand the many advantages of providing free brass lessons. Creating links between community brass bands and the local schools, in which our Proms in the Playground programme, you may have heard of that, it was on BBC News, has played a significant role. It also opens up a pathway to a lifetime in music, and I can tell you from personal experience that both ends of the age, I'm at both ends of this age here, that it's very common to see 15-year-olds sitting in a band sharing a stand with people 4 or 5 times their age. It really is a community for everyone from 9 to 90, and our Brass Foundation's Future Leaders programme is aimed at improving the consistency within community bands nationwide, training the trainers and adding value to the experience of everyone who walks into a band room at any age. On a wider level, we are in conversations about re-establishing the brass band APBG, which was very active prior to the Brexit referendum, but was then swamped by the ensuing chaos in Westminster. So a working group on working class participation in the arts and potential APBG would sit right at the centre of our mission, to open up their unique culture to new audiences and support over 30,000 musicians in achieving their own personal and artistic goals.